in reflective practice. Now, in this diagram, no, in this I should say conceptual framework, no, of COBS, where do we see reflective practice? In which stage do we see a teacher or a person reflecting on his or her experience? Okay, so we see there that it all starts with a concrete experience. Okay, so doing or having an experience. This is where concrete experience by doing, no, by working on it. All right, and so this concrete experience, when we are focused on doing it, we are actually observing ourselves doing it. Or maybe during your observation, you will be observing your resource teachers or cooperating teachers. That forms part of a concrete experience. And so it doesn't stop there. You have to reflect on what you have observed or on what you are observing. So when we reflect, we review and reflect on the experience. Okay. Now, so here, look at concrete experience. We see a habitual action. This is learned before or performed automatically. Meaning to say that if it's an habitual action, you don't normally put so much effort in reflecting on it. And why is that so? Because you already have an understanding on how to do it. No? Now, but if you reflect on it, you will gain more understanding. Why? Because you use existing knowledge, but it remains within existing perspective, your own way of understanding it through your observation. So after reflective observation, what happens is that you have now an abstract conceptualization of your experience, right? So what happens here? You begin to conclude and you begin to learn from your experience. So this is where reflection comes in which you internally explore and examine issues to create personal learning and change. Okay? So because if you just have reflective observation and it doesn't go through abstract conceptualization, it only remains, okay, it only remains as something that you have seen or heard, okay? And you only understand it using your own perspective. So when we do abstract conceptualization, we also try to understand the perspectives of others, no? All right. Now, after abstract conceptualization, active experimentation comes in. So do you still remember the reflective journal written by the teacher? All right. So upon hearing herself, no, from the audio tape, which was a concrete experience, okay, she began to have a good understanding of how she used the word okay. And so she reflected on it and she tried to understand, all right, in an abstract form, no, and making conclusion and trying to learn, no, from that experience that saying okay indiscriminately is not a good practice, all right? And so now the teacher use a strategy, no? She strategized so that she will be aware when to catch herself saying okay. And so that's active experimentation. She tries to find out what she could do so that she would stop from saying okay. So in that aspect, the teacher is making a critical reflection, no? Why do we say critical? Because in this part, in this stage, okay, the teacher confronts what she has what she has been habitually doing, which is not actually correct. And so this is when real learning takes place, when we critically reflect on our practice. And so there will be transformation, and upon reviewing our assumptions, then we try to take into consideration also the perspectives of others. In that particular example, all right, she uh, she took notice of her mannerism and tried to connect it to what her cooperating teacher was actually pointing at her. Okay? So then, yan, nag-active experimentation na siya, no? And she tried to correct, no? And to say, to utter or to say, okay, less often. Okay, so therefore, upon learning that, then it goes back to habitual action, meaning to say that upon reflecting on that particular experience, the teacher learned, and so she continuously does it, no? So to show that she has learned from it. Okay? And so concrete experience once again will take will come in, and so the process continues. Okay, so that's one example of having reflective practice. So you really don't need, if you are reflecting critically, you really don't need every correction from your cooperating teacher. You really don't have to wait for your cooperating teacher or from your supervisor to point out to you what you need to change. So reflective practice requires reflective thinking. So this is the assessment of the reasons underlying certain decisions and actions in the process of teaching and learning, which requires systematic, discipline, and rigorous way of thinking. Now, many students wouldn't want this because to be rigorous is actually having go through the challenge, no, or the challenges of thinking. Di ba? Mahirap mag-isip, pero paano tayo lalago kung hindi tayo mag-iisip, no? And so reflective thinking requires a person, most especially a teacher, okay, to have that disciplined way of thinking. Now, if we have to look at thinking, there are 4 modes of thinking. It depends on the kind of situation that you will have to analyze and to act on. Okay, so we have at the base the technological or formulaic thinking. So there is a ready formula as to what to do, given a situation. Now the next is the situational thinking, a little bit higher than formulaic thinking. Now, after having practiced reflective thinking, then you will notice yourselves going into deliberate thinking. Your thinking is purposeful. You induce yourselves to think. And of course, the apex or the highest is dialectical thinking, right? So dialectical thinking leads to transformation. Why? Because in this stage, you begin to speak to yourself, okay, and find out and confront what you need to change. Okay, so here are some examples. All right, so when we say formulaic thinking, as I have said, this is based on knowledge from an external, existing, and prescribed source, where a teacher relies on practices that have been proven to be effective and efficient. So actually, there's no thinking here. because we just implement, okay, what has been proven to be effective. All right, so here's an example. So this mode of thinking works best for many routine decisions, no? Such as how a teacher takes the attendance, transition from subject to subject, implements classroom rules in distributing papers, among others. Okay, so if you have to look at the classroom, observe, no, what incidents, no, or what particular situations require a teacher not to be really thinking so deeply about it, because it has been, it has been um, uh, laid out. And so, like the classroom rules, no, and other routinary activities, this may not actually necessitate, no, a lot of thinking. But of course, if, for example, you have to start, no, with with a new set of guidelines, a new set of rules in the classroom, it has to start with really carefully observing, all right, the dynamics in the class, so that you can effective rules. Situational thinking focuses only on information embedded in a specific context at a specific time, without looking beyond the surface to consider the root cause of the problematic situation. So you see, it's a bit higher than formulaic thinking. So this happens when, all right, uh, this happen when you apply low-level intervention to a student whose behavior is off task. No? So what are these low-level intervention? Like you apply proximity, no? In probably have heard the term proximity, when you have to go near the student who doesn't pay attention. And so when you stand near that student, then you will see that this student will change his or her behavior. Okay, but so you actually do that because the situation calls for that kind of decision. Okay, so situational thinking. But to do this, you should have at your fingertips, no, the different ways of modifying, no, a child's or student's behavior, depending on the motives, no, presented during that particular episode. So deliberate thinking. So this is done when an educator intentionally seeks more information than what the immediate context provides. The goal is to learn more or to better understand the problematic situation. So you see how the teacher departs from being formulaic thinker to someone who just think about the situation. Here, there is an intentionality, no, to really understand what is happening in a particular episode, in a particular situation. So here is an example, no? So this may be seen, no, when a teacher interviews the student and reviewing the student's record to understand why the student demonstrated an unacceptable behavior. So you see, what did the teacher deliberately do? The teacher deliberately looked into the records of the student, no? Tinignan niya, bakit kaya itong batang ito, 'di ba? Ganito ang ipinapakitang behavior. Saan kaya siya nagmumula? Ano kaya ang pinagmumulan, no, ng kanyang ipinapakitang ito, no? And so the teacher begins to understand, okay, reasons behind the surface, no? Behind the surface. Remember that what we see, okay, what we see in the student's behavior is just on the surface. There are underlying reasons, no, why a student behaves that way. And of course, dialectical thinking. This is exhibited by teachers when a change in teaching behavior takes place, resulting from their use of deliberate thinking to gain understanding of a situation. Okay, so here, when the teacher begins to do dialectical thinking, she induces no transformation of himself or of herself. Okay, so there, after looking at the processes, the teacher now will convince and confront herself that, well, shouting at students, okay, does not really stop them from making noise or from misbehaving. I think I should change my way of interacting with them. Maybe there is a bit better way of gaining their attention. Maybe there is a better way of stopping them from doing those unnecessary things in my class. Maybe the fault is mine. Maybe I did not give the directions clearly. And so, yan, misbehavior sets in once they lose control of what they need to do. Okay? So that's dialectical thinking. All right. Now, so we have to look at the different areas of development in reflective thinking. No? So here you see a work, no, a research completed by a reflective practitioner, no? Gumawa siya ng parang classroom-based research, no? Action research. And so the researcher looks into the 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 notes, no? Yan, OneNote, yung 'di ba merong OneNote tayo. He looked into the notes written by students without actually prompting them to do that. No? Gusto lang niyang makita sino ba yung mga bata na nagno-note taking, sino yung hindi, at ano kaya ang benefit nito sa mga bata, no? All right. So here, the teacher reflected on students' behavior, and he also reflected on the way he taught the course, no, business mathematics during the online learning mode. Okay, so here we see that the areas of development in reflective thinking are three. No, one, yan, it helps the teacher to self-assess. It also helps the students to self-assess, di ba? Kanina, kasi course orientation, dun sa undergraduate, may nagsabi sa aking estudyante na ang gusto daw niya, tuwing meron siyang ipapasa na halimbawa ay kunyari may reflective essay o kung ano man, kailangan daw laging may feedback at laging may, alam mo yon, yung laging parang nai-evaluate ng teacher. So saan ko kaya ika-categorize yung ganong estudyante, no? Maybe that student has not reached, no, that level of self-assessing herself, no? Kasi ibig sabihin, kailangan pa niya ng ibang tao para mag-isip ng output niya, no? And in real life, it doesn't happen that way, no? Sa school lang kayo ina-assess o kaya ini-evaluate ng teacher kasi nandiyan sila. But that is not helping you to become future ready. Okay? Because in the future, you have to really be reflective on your experiences. And no one will always be there to evaluate, to assess you, to give you feedback. No? That's why during this course, now that you are in your field study, you really have to do a lot of thinking so that through it, you can learn from all the experiences that come your way. Okay? So, another area of development is the awareness of how one learns, di ba? No one, even your teachers, cannot tell you, no? Or they cannot even recommend, no, a strategy for you, no. It is only you, the learner, okay, who can develop a way on how to self-assess and on how to understand how one learns. Okay? Napakamahalaga nun. If we want to be future-ready teachers, all right, we actually should be aware of our own strategies. How do we learn? Okay? And of course, the last one is, yan, reflective thinking actually develops lifelong learning skills, no? Because thinking, learning from experience does not stop. Okay? Learning from experience goes with us, okay, until we decide to retire, no? From our profession, but it doesn't stop there. It still continues, no, up to the last breath, di ba? So learning new skills, no, like for example, you can wonder, no, why some teachers, okay, with like my age, no, how how did I learn, no, from all of this technology? Actually, hindi pa ako expert, no? And I would say that my students are really more, no, more they're more adept, no, with the use of technology. But one thing this senior, no, teachers have, they have this capacity, no, to learn more, no? And so lalo na sa inyong mga mas bata pa sa profesyon, you have to start, no, developing your lifelong learning skills now. When I say lifelong learning skills, it's not only technology, no? Maybe if I ask you, do you know how to cook? Do you know how to reuse, no, some items? Do you know how to do some things that will make your life and the life of your community better? So these are lifelong skills, no? Kami nga magre-retire sa isang organization na kung saan kasali ako, pinag-uusapan namin, how will life be after retirement? Diba? Because we resist, no? We resist that idea of stopping from learning. Okay? Yan. So that this can be developed if we continuously learn, no, from our experiences. Okay, so all right. Let's look at the areas of development in reflective thinking. No? So I said ability to self-assess. Situate yourselves, no, as teachers in the classroom. Okay? Konting panahon na lang, kayo na rin yung hahawak ng classroom. So, how do you do that? When you observe your own performance, all right? When you use feedback and evidence to improve practice, when you find and analyze patterns, no? Patterns that are happening in the classroom. And you also do this when you make judgment, no? So, there are levels, no? 3 levels. You are in the introductory when you see these indicators, no? So, introductory, if you make global judgment without evidence, no? Kagaya ng mga nababasa kong post ng ilang mga teachers tungkol sa tungkol sa news, no, tungkol sa article, no, about teachers as being the reason, no, for low achievement, okay, for students' low achievement. Teachers, what is that? Teachers poor skills, teaching skills, no? So nagagalit na sila. Dapat titignan muna nila yung evidence kasi ito ay inaral ng World Bank, ito ay lumabas sa PISA results, no? And so they point, okay, this studies point to teacher quality, poor teacher quality. So magagalit ba tayo nun? kung marunong tayo mag-self-assess, di ba? Okay, so introductory, when one sees performance, same as assignment, no? Doing what is being told, no? They repeat the judgment of evaluators, no? They see feedback as affirmation and evidence. Ayan, yung sinasabi ko, no? O bakit kailangan mong manghingi lagi ng feedback, no? Parang grade 1 ba yun? Na teacher, tama po ba itong ginawa ko? Di ba? So, introductory, if a person continuously seeks for affirmation, okay? Introductory, if the person narrates process, no? If the person merely says that she followed or he followed the steps, okay? And another thing is when a person observes rather than infers, no? So magkaiba ng layer yung observation and making inferences. Intermediate, when you apply disciplinary constructs, no? What is in the discipline? What is in the area of specialization that will help you self-assess? Demonstrates proper understanding of concept, uses feedback to expand understanding, recognizes connections, links, and relationships such as cause and effect, and makes inferences. So this relates judgments to evidence, no? Ngayon, paano tayo pupunta dun sa advanced level, no? When we try to observe intentional changes as basis for higher learning. See, intentional changes. Halimbawa, ang ginawa ko kahapon ay ganito. Hindi maganda ang naging resulta. Paano kaya ang gagawin ko the next time I teach the same subject to a different set of students? Okay? So, it is advanced when one probes own work and understanding. It uses multiple and interdisciplinary frameworks to understand, no? So, hindi lang ito pag math lang. Maybe, bakit kaya hindi nasa-solve ng mga estudyante ko itong worded problem? Maybe there's nothing wrong with their numeracy skills. Maybe they have difficulty in understanding the words in the problem, no? And of course, makes connections, applications, and uses to move forward. Okay? So that's about self-assessment, no? Now, when we develop along this area, awareness of how one learns, it is about concepts and misconceptions, no? Dapat alam natin kung kailan, mali na pala ang naiintindihan ko dito, no? And so we move to knowledge construction and metacognition. We try to understand how we think. If we try to understand how we think, we can discover how we learn. Okay? So introductory. Sa ano yung mga pinapakita ng nasa ganitong level? Limits concept development to the terms given in the assignment. Sees feedback as external and not subject to analysis. Sees knowledge construction only within the terms of the assignment. Yan, doon lang siya. Doon lang sa parameters ng assignment, no? And employs personal theories largely without explanation or analysis. Intermediate, when one sees feedback as means to understand links between current and future performance. You have to be very aware of this. Now, my dear teachers, if we want to model what good learning is to our students, we are the first ones to show this. Okay? So, intermediate, practitioner in this level notes changes in own patterns of performance. Sees knowledge construction as integrating known and new knowledge, applies theories or broader frameworks to discussion of learning. Now, of course, we all want to go to the advanced level. So, ano ba ang indicators? No? You have to integrate feedback and past performance to construct future learning plans. Use growing awareness of knowledge structures to envision future learning, and understand own performance as a learner, and transfers these strategies to multiple contexts. Okay? Now, let's move on to developing lifelong learning skills. All right. So here we see that we are beginning to see our identity as a learner. If I ask you, what is your identity, no, as a learner? Are you a fast learner, a slow? Pwedeng ganon, no? Or maybe you can see that, oh, I am a global learner, or am I? So you can ask yourself, am I actually more on the specifics, no? So there are a lot of questions that we can ask ourselves, no? All right. So what are the other characteristics? You can transfer learning to other contexts and understand learning as a lifelong process. Introductory has 3 indicators, no? Yan. Confusion sets in whenever you try to learn, okay, new things, and you are actually disturbed, no, by the feedback given to you, no? Introductory pa lang yon. When one uses generalized notion of success or effectiveness as basis for reflection, no? And global self-evaluations minimize connections between performance and reflecting on performance. Yan. All right? So if you box, no, or limit yourself into just using the grades, no, as your matrix, no, for success, then we cease to be, or you cease to be, a lifelong learner. Hindi kasi marami sa pagkakataon na hindi laging nasusukat ng grade ang ating mga natututunan. Intermediate, no? When one self-identifies as a learner, constructing meaning with experience now and in the future, questions personal assumptions and recognizes multiple perspectives, no? Identifies challenges, demonstrating positive attitude and confidence, using self-assessment as basis to improve. Now we move on to advanced, no? Here, we see our identity as a learner. Okay, we employ internalized construction of effectiveness. We try to understand, no? When are we effective? Kahit na nga lang sa oras ng pag-aaral, di ba? Kailan ako mas productive? Pagka sa gabi ba o sa umaga, pag magigising ako sa umaga, no? And so, yan, inaaral natin kung ano yung ating, yung ating yung ating body clock, kung saan tayo mas makakagawa ng mas mahusay, no? All right. So advanced level questions assumptions to construct intellectual commitments, aware of multiple perspectives, and situates personal narrative in a larger intellectual professional frameworks, transferring learning to new situations. Okay, so you are getting into the advanced level if you open yourself, no, to different perspectives. Kaya napakamahalaga na you join organizations, no, hindi lang yung kung saan lang yung specialization or majorship nyo. It's very important that you get to learn, no, views from others. Okay. So this is the big question. What do I know? What do you know about reflective teaching practice? Kanina kasi diniscuss natin yung reflective thinking, which is a precursor for one to be a reflective practitioner. Okay, so let's look at how we view reflective teaching practice. Okay, so RTP can be viewed with a competency-based perspective. All right. So your reflective teaching practice can be focused on the development of particular skill, your competence, no? Like for example, if you see yourself as not really good in asking questions or in engaging, no, people in a conversation, then probably, no, you want to view it as a competency-based perspective. You can also view it using the personalistic perspective. Now you have a personal agenda. Okay, you try to find out your emotionality about something, no, self-study and individual enhancement. Kaya nga, for personal development. you can use RTP as an experiential perspective, using experiential perspective, okay? So what do you do when you use this? You actively explore, no, the lived experiences, your day-to-day experiences, no? And of course, we view many teachers, no, in the advanced level would view RTP as transformatory, no? It can transform the person, okay, by asking questions that can challenge the status quo, okay? Now, generic reflective practices, what are these, no? Siguro, pinapractice nyo na ito, pero hindi nyo lang napapangalanan, no? So, one is self-reflective or collective reflective practices, no? So, you want to know more about or do something with. Another is reflecting on information generated through the use of particular method, di ba? Like you have your mind map, your journals, no? And then dialogue, meaning making. Okay, this is another practice in which you derive from conversation and discussion with others. You learn, no, from others through this practice. And of course, the questioning, no, the why type. Okay, make sure to balance the why type to with how type of questions. Hindi lang how. Lagi muna nating isipin bakit. Bakit natin ginagawa to? Pag nakumbinsin na natin yung sarili natin, dapat nga natin itong gawin. Pero paano? So, ayun, no? Alright, next. We also engage reflective practice through conversation. Okay? So, reflective conversation, and I think you will be doing a lot of this with your supervising professors, with your cooperating teachers, no? So, reflective conversation is a consideration and questioning of educational values that give shape, form, and purpose to what you intend to do, okay? It moves from private conversations with self to the public, no? So, you first ask yourself, ano muna ang pagkakaintindi ko nito? And then, you engage others, okay? In a conversation. This is a special kind of discourse that often takes the form of question and response. It looks back to what has been, it looks forward to what will be, and it is located in time and space. Kaya kailangan pag may reflective conversation, iset yung parameters, no? Okay, it makes sense of teaching and learning. It interrogates educators' experiences, and it has the potential to enlighten and empower. That is if the reflective conversation is successful, right? Now, so we look at strengths-based reflective practice, no? Pag sinabi nating strengths-based, what do we focus on? On the strength of the learner, or we focus also on the strength of the teacher, what the teacher is equipped with, or what you are equipped with, okay? So, when we think about strengths-based reflective practice, we first appreciate, no? We appreciate what is best in the present situation. Diba? Sabi ko nga, kung pangit yung sitwasyon, may isang maganda dyan. So you have to appreciate what best, no? What is the best, no, presented? What is the good presented in a situation? And then imagine, no? Try to visualize what needs to be changed, no, to make things even better. And after imagining it, of course, it doesn't stop with just thinking about it. You have to act on it, no? What needs to be done and by whom. And of course, design na, no? Design thinking na. Why should there be design? Why is this a very important component? Because after acting out, you find better ways of doing. And so you create opportunities for teachers and students to do their best to achieve the goals. Okay? Now, when we talk about conversation, no, So you will find yourselves having a reflective conversation with your students, with your teachers, no, with your peers, no. And so, yeah, we have to understand that there are three types of transactional trust, no. Yan. So we have contractual trust, communication trust, and competence trust. What are these? Okay. So when we say contractual trust, no, this is essentially a trust of character, di ba? How can you converse or how can you have a conversation with a person whom you cannot trust, di ba? So this is about the person being consistent in what he or she says and does, keeping agreements, honoring one's word, and behaving consistently to illustrate contractual trust. Am I still with you? Baka ako'y naglalag na. Okay, check.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Communication trust, no? This is basically a trust of disclosure, no? Siyempre, pag makikipag-usap ka, you reveal, okay, how much of what you want, no? That person to know about you, no? So communication trust, it is about a person's willingness to share information, to tell the truth, admit mistakes, maintain confidentiality, and give and receive constructive feedback. The quality of conversation between people is always introduced or influenced by trust. Huh? So without trust, I don't think we can really move forward. No? Kaya kung titignan natin sa mas mataas pa na level ng ating pakikipag-ugnayan, ay talagang napakamahalaga ng tiwala. All right, competence trust, no? So this is primarily a trust of capability, di ba? So it is essentially a question of how much a person can be relied on in terms of his or her capability in accomplishing a task. Di ba? Na-feel nyo ba minsan hindi kayo binigyan ng ganitong assignment? Siguro feel ng mga kamiyembro nyo, hindi nyo siya kayang gawin. Hindi kayo pinagkakatiwalaang gawin, di ba? Kaya minsan nakakatakot yung wala na sa yung binibigay na task kasi baka walang tiwala na pwede mo, may kakayahan kang gawin yung pinapagawa sa'yo, no? So competence trust is very important in helping a teacher learn from constructive feedback in order for her to improve, no? The capability to change, all right? So we say that not all actions lead to learning, and that practitioners whose actions are informed by reflection will experience cognitive growth, no? So if you have to look at the items that we have discussed, it is all about it is all about learning. We should learn from our experiences, and these actions must be informed by reflection. Okay, kaya wag matakot, mag-isip, di ba? Mag-take ng risk, no? Yung tinatawag nating calculated risk. Kasi pag sinabing calculated risk, pinag-isipan yon, alright? Huwag matakot na magtanong, di ba? Kasi yung mga tanong natin, yun ay sana, no? Yun ay bunga ng ating malalim, no, na pag-iisip, no? Alright. So, here, yan. As teachers, we do reflection in action, no? Ano to? This is reflection, okay, as the process of thinking on your feet while the action is taking place, okay, while the event is transpiring. Okay, reflection in action prevents teachers from doing trial and error, ha? Naku po, my dear teachers, please, no, plan your lesson